It's been a dream and vision of mine for over 25 years now.
Tonight, the countdown begins for the 2020 Indigenous Games on Mi'kmaq territory.
Well, you can't tell the Voyageur story without a canoe and a river.
And what was life like for the Métis when they lived as fur traders? A new river tour in Alberta takes you back in history. Good evening, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. The countdown is on for the North American Indigenous Games. In 2020, the Games will be in Halifax, a first for Mi'kmaq territory. Lee Wilson reports.
This is the kickoff event for the 2020 North American Indigenous Games. Athletes from New Brunswick, PEI, Newfoundland, and Labrador are celebrating.
1 year from now, our 525,000 minutes, our 31.5 million seconds, we will be hosting the North American Indigenous Games.
This will be the 30th anniversary. The first games were held in Edmonton, Alberta in 1990. Tex Marshall is the president of the Host Society for NAIG. He has been involved in Indigenous sports for decades.
My own personal countdown to hosting NAIG here in Halifax is not just recent. It's been a dream and vision of mine for over 25 years now.
The venues for the games will be in Halifax and in Millbrook First Nation, an hour north of the city. NAIG will be the largest sporting event ever in Atlantic Canada.
This is history. This is Halifax. This is Mi'kmaq. Let's make it, and let's make it big.
Athletes will be competing in sports, including lacrosse, volleyball, and badminton.
The archery competition is part of the North American Indigenous Games.
Mi'kmaq here say it's not just about sports, it's also a chance to share the culture.
It's a beautiful celebration of culture, music, sport, dance, and the spirit of competition. Like all the games that we play, like I call it my game, my language, Atskanyantra, it's the games that we play, but that's also infused with the cultural side of it, and that's really what the games represent to me. It's really that spirit and beauty of who we are as Indigenous people from across the world. Yeah.
Emma Stevens, let's hear it.
The energy was high, but everybody got quiet as Emma Stevens took the stage. The young Mi'kmaq singer has made headlines with her rendition of the Beatles song Blackbird, sung in Mi'kmaq. Athletes are looking forward to the games and so much more.
I find it's very interesting competing against just all Aboriginal people because you sort of feel like you're like together, like your family sort of, but not really.
But there's so many different people from so many different communities and cultures. It's amazing.
This time next year, thousands of people across Turtle Island will be here.
Let the 1 year countdown begin for the 2020 North American Indigenous Games.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Jabuktuk, Halifax.
The Métis National Council is facing an audit from the federal government and scrutiny for how it manages its money. The news came to light after a report this morning. Amber Bernard joins us from our Ottawa studio to explain what's going on. Amber, there's reports being made today that the Métis National Council is being financially audited. Can you tell us more?
Yes, CBC reported today, and Crown Indigenous Relations confirmed with us in an email statement that the Métis National Council is under financial review, but they won't comment further because the investigation is still ongoing.
So do you have any idea what triggered this audit by the feds?
I spoke with the Finance Minister, David Chartrand, of the Métis National Council, and he said the investigation started last summer after complaints were lodged against the council for the misuse of funds by 2 disgruntled employees, according to Chartrand.
Okay, and there's also...
He said he took... Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh. Okay. He said he took the complaints seriously and hired his own auditor to review the financial statements and that no discrepancies were found. Now, in terms of the government investigation, he said no red flags were brought to his attention other than recommendations to implement better work travel summaries.
So it sounds like he thinks that that was all dealt with, but now there's this audit that's going on, and there's also talk that the RCMP has launched an investigation into what's going on at MNC. Did Chartrand comment on that, or do you have any idea what's going on with regards to that alleged investigation?
Well, he says that there's two former employees that leaked documents from the Métis National Council, and they tried to make up a story that there was a misuse of funds. He says that's not true, and he also believes that they had gone to the RCMP and that they started a rumor that the RCMP is conducting their own investigation on MNC. Chartrand says the RCMP has never contacted him, and he never contacted the RCMP, so he's unaware of any investigation, if any investigation is happening right now with the RCMP.
Well, it looks like you've got your hands full on follow-ups to this story then, Amber.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Follow the story. Yeah, thank you.
As we heard, David Chartrand of the Métis National Council insists that disgruntled employees are to blame for the false allegations made. Chartrand also says that Indigenous organizations like the MNC are always under more scrutiny because they're Indigenous-led.
And from there, Ernst & Young was hired. Canada said once allegations are made, like they typically do to Indigenous people, once allegations are made by somebody, they got to investigate. And so I met with Ernst & Young, and they said they could look whatever they want. They could look at any file, any book they want to, any transaction they want to look at. So they've been doing that for a long time now.
Bethany May-Twayashing spoke to APTN today about the public backlash she's received for speaking out against an Indigenous leader who sent her unwanted texts. It's a story that we told you last week, and now she says she's disappointed in a public statement made by Assembly of Manitoba Chief's Grand Chief Arlen Dumas, who announced Friday he's taking a brief leave of absence in light of the allegations. Here's what May-Twayashing had to say about the statement he made.
You're apologizing to the media, but you're not apologizing to me. You don't see where this affected me, my life. Like, I'm getting slandered, there's victim blaming, and I'm tired of being slut-shamed.
May-Twayashing's comments about slut-shaming refer to numerous social media posts berating her for making the texts a public issue. In a public statement issued Friday, Dumas had said in part, quote, "The very clear upset expressed by this woman has caused me to reconsider my open and informal communication style." And he said, quote, "I apologize if this made her feel uncomfortable." APTN reported last week that May-Twayashing came forward claiming Dumas sent her unwanted messages after seeing him at a public event. In those statements, Dumas was referring to his communication style in general, but he denies sending the specific texts in question to May-Twayashing. Another update on that same story. What broke the story last week was Matthew Shorting posting on Facebook texts that he believes showed the Grand Chief had harassed his girlfriend. Shorting was fired Friday, July 12th, for making those posts, and allegedly was fired for that. Shorting was an employee at the Onashawewin Justice Circle, an organization who provides diversion services for the Manitoba Crown Attorney's Office. A text conversation between Shorting and his employer sent to APTN reads as follows. I do suggest that you take your postings down in regards to the Grand Chief. He replied, "Please explain to me, why are you supporting his exploitation of our young women? Is this coming from you or Cora?" The employer said, "Both. Don't forget she is our board chair, and I don't believe Facebook is the way to handle it. It doesn't mean I'm supporting anything." Then Shorting said he did not take the post down, and then on Friday, again by text, he said, "Hey, hello, I'm back. What's going to happen here?" And his employer replied, "You can pick up your paycheck and ROE on Wednesday afternoon." APTN reached out to his employer, the Onashawewin Justice Circle, for comment, but have not heard back on this issue by deadline today. We were told just before deadline, actually, that Julia Robson is on holidays. Shorting's girlfriend had received messages from someone through Facebook Messenger calling himself Charles Forbes, but who later identified himself as Dumas. She also received texts from Dumas's phone. Dumas has denied sending any of these texts and says that he was framed through a false account and that his phone was hacked. He has since taken a leave from his role as Grand Chief. We, of course, want to hear what you think on any matter. Here's how you continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptn news. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. We need to take a quick break, but when we come back, Indigenous basketball players unable to play because refs refused to call their game. Get an outpouring of support. That's after the break. But first, here's a look at tomorrow's weather. Off to the east coast, we've got 25 and rain in Charlottetown, 26 and rain in Halifax. Nukshuak is 15, mostly sunny skies, 20 and cloudy in Cartwright. Chibougamau, rain and 19. Sept-Îles, 15 and rain. Lots of sun in southern Ontario, 26 in North Bay, 26 in Sault Ste. Marie. 27 in cloud and Sioux Lookout, 27 in sunshine in Thunder Bay. 22 and rain in Churchill, 26 and rain in the Paw. Lots of cloud in southern Manitoba, 25s for Barons River, Princess Harbour, Gimli. 30 and rain in Swift Current, Regina, cloudy and rain in 30 in Estevan. Sunshine though up in Uranium City and 23 degrees, 25 in Stony Rapids. Welcome back. Every Friday during summer, Métis Crossing in Alberta offers a 4-hour experience called Paddle into the Past. Participants experience what it was like for the Métis in the area as they lived as fur traders. APTN's Chris Stewart was there for the day and has this story.
What we're going to do now is we're going to head on over here and we're going to do some target practice for a buffalo hunt. 1, 2, 5, go!
This is one of the many hands-on experiences from the Paddle into the Past offered by Métis Crossing. In just 4 hours, you can learn the history of the Métis who lived here beside the North Saskatchewan River. Workers from Alberta and Edmonton Tourism were here to see for themselves what life was like back in 1860. Mackenzie Brown works for both Edmonton and Alberta Tourism as an Indigenous tourism developer.
So I'm here today to experience the paddle into the past at Métis Crossing. So we're going to be doing a voyageur experience, getting a tour around the space, and yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Brilliant.
There you go.
The group learned how to finger weave. They each made their own bracelets using the colors of the Métis sash. They learned about trapping and learned how to jig to the Métis fiddle. Leon Hunter is the Métis Crossing site manager. He says that jigging is always a favorite with visitors.
There's a certain uplifting spirit that happens when we're in the old Cromarty house and everybody does the Red River jig. And at the end of that, the smiles are really wide and genuine.
They began their journey down the North Saskatchewan River, a 5-kilometer trip on authentic voyageur canoes. After 45 minutes of paddling, the group arrived at Victoria Settlement, where there was once a trading post. The Métis families would have sailed on canoes with their furs to trade here.
Well, you can't tell the voyageur story without a canoe and a river, and Métis Crossing is situated on 5 river lots, and we thought what a better way to tie in the fur trading fort that's 5 kilometers down the river than with a voyageur canoe ride. We really saw that as a highlight of the tour.
At the end of the day, the group unanimously called it a fantastic outing and said they will be recommending it.
It felt really great. It was nice to learn some of the different techniques that they use, whether it's the rug making or keychain making, a lot of the jewelry making and the tools and the different turquoise and sea glass that they use to make those products. So it was really interesting to hear the stories on how they lived.
Paddle Into the Past runs each Friday until August 16th. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Métis Crossing, Alberta.
They want us on the left side. Indigenous basketball players are set to benefit from an outpouring of support and donations after its teams were unable to compete in Calgary when refs refused to call their games. Jordan Canigan with CTV News tells us more.
Kathleen Johnson isn't a basketball fan, but when she heard the Kainai Basketball Association story, she knew she had to support the team.
I was really concerned about the kind of tone that was seen there, and whether or not the kids and the families who were coming to Calgary, if they'd be aware that that's not the typical attitude for Calgary.
The KBA says its teams were kicked out of a Calgary tournament because the Refs Association refused to work their games, that after an unspecified dispute with a Kainai High School coach. The kids were eventually allowed to play after alternate officials were found. Johnson was there to cheer them on and bring them ice cream.
Surprising me, they all came over one by one and thanked me. Every single one of them came and thanked me. And I got high fives, I got hugs.
People from across Canada are now helping them out too. A GoFundMe has raised more than $7,000 to get the teams to Las Vegas.
Thank you for supporting KBA.
The story even catching the eye of Toronto Raptors TSN analyst Leo Routens.
These kids don't come from a lot, and so any opportunity, we can come out and help. All the people across Twitter have been phenomenal, just to see their situation and give them some opportunities that can open their world up a little bit.
The association still calls the ban unfair and plan to file a human rights complaint against the Calgary Basketball Officials Association.
It's just ridiculous. It's the discrimination and the racism for CBOA to ban an entire Native community. It just breaks my heart. And not only that, I had to tell kids from ages 8 to 15 years old that they cannot play basketball in Calgary.
For now, the group just wants to focus on the sport they love. Jordan Canigan, CTV News, Calgary.
If you have waterfront property in the North Bay, Ontario area, you may be eligible for free shoreline plant and planting assistance. The local conservation authority, along with the help of the Nipissing First Nation Rangers, has started a Restore Your Shore program in an effort to support the ecosystem. CTV's Brittany Bordelon reports.
This is the 5th year for the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority's Restore Your Shore program. The program provides free plants and planting for waterfront property landowners as a way to keep the waterways healthy.
Putting in woody shrubs or trees, it allows them to extend their roots into the soil, which better stabilizes soil. They also absorb excess water in runoff, and they filter out pollutants and excess nutrients such as phosphorus, which will often flow into waterways due to industrial or agricultural practices that are upstream.
This is the first year the program is partnering with the Nipissing First Nation Rangers, an 8-week environmental management project for high school students.
This program teaches them environmental stewardship and leadership skills within their community, so it enriches their learning. We hope to inspire leaders of the environment for the future.
Doing this job has really made me open my eyes and see the different things and how we can help and stuff.
And with warning there's blue-green algae blooms in many surrounding lakes, the Conservation Authority is hopeful planting these shrubs will combat those toxins.
They will prevent further erosion. They'll prevent a lot of runoff of nutrients into the water, and Chippewa Creek drains into Lake Nipissing, so it'll hopefully help prevent that.
For property owners looking to take part in the program, the Conservation Authority says it's now taking bookings for site assessments. Brittany Bordelon, CTV News, North Bay.
Time for us to take another quick break, but when we come back, an Anishinaabe artist from Lac Seul in Ontario takes Montreal by storm. First, here's the rest of tomorrow's weather. To northern Alberta, we've got 24 in sunshine in Peace River and a mix of sun and cloud in Grand Prairie. 24 in rain in Red Deer, 32 and rain in Medicine Hat. Bella Coola is rainy and 23, as is Quesnel, 29 and rain in Penticton. East Lakes is mostly cloudy, but a little bit of sun, 22 degrees, 22 and cloud in Smithers, 22 and rain in Dawson City, 21 and rain in Whitehorse. Norman Wells is sunshine and 22, 19s for Wati and Yellowknife. Inuvik is 25 with clear skies, 18 and sunshine in Colville Lake. 8 and mostly sunny up in Cambridge Bay, 15 in Chesterfield. 5 and rain in Arctic Bay, 14 and mostly sunny in Clyde River, and Pangertung is a mix of sun and cloud, 9. Welcome back. An international film festival on Manitoulin Island showcases Indigenous stories from local students. Lindsay Alick reports.
This Indigenous Film Festival was created to showcase the work of students here at the Wingushk Film Institute in Shiging.
One of the reasons why I started Wingushk International Film Festival is that we couldn't get our students' films seen in other film festivals around the world. And so we said, why not show these films to people, what the kids are doing here?
Not only will the festival feature work from local artists, it will also include movies that have premiered at major festivals like TIFF. For example, Wadu, which features a sisterhood of Māori female directors sharing their insights into the complexity of child abuse in a sequence of 8 short films that become one.
Really, it talks to the impact of colonisation and the loss of the values, or tikanga as we call it, on our people in terms of our traditional parenting values and our way of being and with our children. And it really addresses a huge child abuse issue in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
While the films come from different places and explore different themes, the common thread at the festival is that the Indigenous stories are told by Indigenous people.
We're often through our stories trying to unpack, and trying to restory, and that's exhausting. So when we have opportunity to come together in something like this, with something like this, that it really just reconnects us. It reconnects us to spirit, it reconnects us to community, it reconnects us to each other.
The award-winning artist Rebecca Belmore presents her exhibition Facing the Monumental in Montreal. The Anishinaabe artist from Lac Seul in Northern Ontario was in Montreal to launch the exhibition. Sophie Claude Miller met with her at the Contemporary Arts Museum.
For Rebecca Belmore, the ongoing violence against Indigenous people must be addressed, and her creations are meant to spark reactions.
Yeah, I think I'm interested in engaging people emotionally. So I think I try to create work or create space or a place for people to feel something, to be affected by the work.
The core of Belmore's work is based on performance. She is present throughout the exhibition.
I think performance for me is really about being able to be present, and people cannot, deny my Indigenous self. So I think I speak really from being an Indigenous woman.
In 2019, it is impossible to ignore the fact that Indigenous women are disappearing and murdered at an alarming rate. Belmore was already concerned about it in 2014 and created, during a performance of 7 hours, a sculpture that represents with each nails an Indigenous woman who passed.
As an Indigenous woman, of course, we have very, very difficult time still today, like being out in public or in going about our daily lives where people want to, do shit to us.
The award-winning artist, who has been working for 32 years, had this advice for younger Indigenous artists.
I think it's important as when you're young to go to exhibitions, to meet people, so that really you have to go out and seek people out. Otherwise, you can't stay in the basement. No one's going to come knocking on your door.
Sophie Claude Miller, APTN National News, Montreal.
That's your APTN National News for this fine Monday. Of course, you can catch up on anything that you've missed at our website, aptnnews.ca, and be sure to download the APTN News app on your phone to keep up on news as it unfolds. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night.